Gorgeous ladies, and welcome to Midlife Confidential, the virtual parlor for women over 40 and beyond. I am Michela Di Carlo. I'm the founder and the chief editor of CrunchyTales.com, the first illustrated online magazine for women who don't let age define themselves. And today I'm so excited for our panelists because, first of all, thank you so much for joining us and believing to this project. And our lineup is so brilliant. Welcome to Amy Schmidt. She's a podcaster, a writer, a journalist, a motivational speaker. Oh my God. I mean, how many lives into one? Can I say that? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Amy. And she's from Connecticut. Woohoo.
Yes.
And from Washington, D.C., we have Maria Olsen. Welcome, Maria.
Hello, thank you.
Maria, she's an attorney. Oh my God, a litigation attorney. That makes me even more a bit, nervous. Oh my God, and and she's also a radio host and a writer. And I will explain you later. Welcome, Maria. And from Kerala, long distance, because CrunchyTales is based in England. And actually, at the moment, I'm in Rome enjoying the Bella Vita. Sorry, but I was in need of a proper summer. Mm-hmm. And Nuthan Manohar is a well-being whisperer. She's also a sleep expert, a crunchy expert, a yoga teacher, a TEDx speaker. Welcome, Nuthan. Welcome.
Thank you.
So today, before moving on your personal experience subject, I'm going to ask you, all of you, this question. Well, I don't know about you, but how does it feel to cross a line and leave your youth behind? Challenge, a relief, liberation, anything.
You know what? It's all three of those things. I love that because it really is. I turned 50 a few months ago, and it was funny because I've navigated this life of raising three children, being married for 27 years. And all of a sudden, I kind of sat back as my children are grown. I've gone through things like losing both of my parents. I'm having all of these conversations with friends that are all about the same things that we go through at this phase of life. And I sat back and said, you know what? We share all these commonalities. There's more I need to do. There's more I need to give. And so it really challenged me, about 6 months, even about a year before I turned 50 to say, you know what? I want to do this. I want to put myself out there. I want to challenge myself. I have more energy. I have more time. I have more life experience. So, why not take this? And so it is. It's challenging. It's liberating. And it's fantastic.
Wow. And for you, Maria?
I agree with what Amy said. I think 50 is a huge reckoning point for many of us, and I find it empowering that most women at this stage in our life have more time and perspective to work on ourselves to a greater extent and to figure out where we want to put our energies now that our caretaking responsibilities are usually diminishing at this stage in our lives. And before true old age sets in and infirmity, we have this window of beautiful time to figure out our why in the world for ourselves rather than being the caregiver to so many other people. So it's a time for me of harnessing energy, like Amy alluded to, and figuring out what my contribution is to the world in this stage of life, and to figure out what I'm supposed to learn at this stage of life. Everything and every person, every situation is an opportunity now for me more than ever to learn and to grow.
Oh, wow. And Nuthan, you are the youngest, but you're just stepping into that age group, let's say that.
I have actually. I just turned 40, and if I think about it, my 20s were all about work, but I was severely exhausted. I was not this fit. I was not happy. I went through depression. I went through anxiety, a whole lot of things that I feel right now much more younger than I was when I was in my 20s all the way to my 30. So I think this is the year that I feel much better. I'm able to kind of, have a lot more energy to focus on things I want to do. And the best thing that has happened is I no longer try to, focus on what other people think, because I think earlier part of life is a lot about what do others think, how do you take care of other people's expectations of you. And now it's just about what do I want to do and, be able to focus on that. So I think this is really good. It should have come earlier.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Well, actually, here at CrunchyTales, we embrace middle age as a playful time. Actually, we believe that playful women don't get old.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to encourage ladies to dare. So I wonder, when was the last time you did something that took you out of your comfort zone?
Oh.
Amy?
Yeah, boy, that's a great question. And I try to go out of my comfort zone continually. And like Maria said, constantly learning something new. For me, starting my podcast was a big thing. I had a background in news broadcasting, so that the interview part, that part of starting a podcast didn't scare me as much. But the fear set in around technology for me, and saying, wow, this is really out of my comfort zone. I try to stay technologically savvy, but there's not just a button you push to start a podcast. There is a learning curve. And so for me, that was really going out of my comfort zone. And that's really part of my story, and part of what I've written in my book is showing women that, if they engage in learning, and right now at this point in our life, just think of what we're doing now. I mean, we're sitting in India, and we're sitting in Rome, and we're sitting, all over the place, and technology is connecting us all. So we have to stay current with that. That was a big challenge for me. When I started my podcast, I love to share this story because I think you'll like this. I started and I had everything ready to go. I had done my classwork. I had figured out how to do podcasting. I had done my introduction, and I was ready to go with my first episode. And I remember sitting in my office and taking the deep breath and saying, okay, I'm ready to go. And I just roll with it. I had some of it scripted, and I thought, wow, I'm really killing this. This is great. And I stopped at the end of it, probably about 20 minutes in, and I went to find the audio file, and there wasn't one, because I simply forgot to push record. So, as women, we tend to, all of a sudden, those feelings of self-doubt set in. And I think, oh man, I'm trying to challenge myself, learn something new. Here I am, 50 years old, starting a podcast, and I can't even remember to push record. So, those were challenges. But the great thing about that is we have to realize that we build confidence through those challenges and through those failures, to be honest. And it didn't matter that I forgot to push record. It was another practice run for me. I did it right the next time, and it was okay. But I've learned through this journey that you have to challenge yourself, and you can't judge yourself and say, oh, well, that's it. I can't do this. I forgot to push record. I'm done. We tend to get in our own way and stop.
Well, Amy, I have to say that your podcast is brilliant, and I mean, I'm glad that you step out of your comfort zone, because it's lovely, and it's a really I really like to listen to your podcast.
Thank you.
All of your guests are very interesting. And, I think it's good for all of us, because in some ways, thanks to your podcast, you help us, in keeping motivated, And for you, Maria, so when was the last time you stepped out of your comfort zone?
I think, as Amy said, it's continual. And for me, it is about talking back to societal expectations continually. I let the earlier part of my life be molded by societal and familial expectations. And now I am forging new paths for myself. And one of the things that I do in this stage of my life that I would probably never have done before is I took a motorcycle class at the local Harley Davidson dealership and bought myself a motorcycle. And for this,
Awesome.
it was me and a bunch of burly tattooed guys. And for this former soccer mom, PTA president, they just looked at me with such disdain, like, who the heck are you? What are you doing here? And for me, it was just like stepping into my power, reclaiming my power and saying, I am doing this because I think it's fun and daring, and I'm not going to be concerned with what other people think of me. I'm doing this just for myself. And I said to my kids, you're welcome to do this after you turn 50 because it is, I know, dangerous. But I am embracing life's challenges in this way and trying not to have any regrets over things that I didn't try, that I wanted to try, because I was worried at that time of what other people might think of me, and really internalizing the lesson that what other people think of me is really not my business, nor is it anything I can control. And I used to make myself exhausted trying to please other people and worry about what other people think. And now I'm focusing in this chapter of my life on what I think of me. So that guess that's kind of a long way of answering your question of how I bring myself out of my comfort zone. And also in my book, it talks about all the 50 different things I tried to outline the contours of my how I wanted to live this chapter. And some of the things I'll never try again, and I don't need to. But I stretched my comfort zone to examine how I wanted this chapter to look.
And you dare to be involved in this funny conversation with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Step out of your comfort zone. So, with these playful, sassy women over 40. And Nuthan, and you, how about you?
So last year actually has been an entire year of facing my discomfort or going out of my comfort zone. So one of the reasons why I started going into yoga, this is when I was 30. I realized everything was going off, in the sense I was getting treated for depression, all that. But the part which hit me most was when I realized my knees have given up, and my physiotherapist tells me no more trekking. So I used to be an avid Himalaya high altitude trekker. Even though while I'm trekking, I'm complaining and wondering why the hell am I doing this? I didn't want to do that. So every year, at least 2 times, I literally kill myself. But that's something I look forward to. And when he said I cannot do that, that was the turning point, and I realized, okay, I now need to really take care of myself. So it didn't matter that I had depression. It didn't matter that I was literally kind of going into a nervous breakdown. What mattered was when he said, you cannot trek anymore. So I'm like, no, this is not acceptable. So I start working on it. And then, very strangely, I couldn't start going trekking immediately. It took almost a decade. And that's when I actually got my life in order, when I could go ahead and, enjoy a trek. And it was back again with my friends, and decided to do a trek in the Himalayas. So this was for January 1st. And I didn't think I would do it. First of all, living in Kerala, I had gotten completely unused to anything that is below 25 degrees Celsius. I can imagine 10 degrees Celsius, and it is going to be minus. And that was scary. And whether my knees would, hold on to whatever I'm trying to do was another thing.
Excuse me, Nuthan, I can't hear you very clearly. Can you? Yes, please.
Is this better now? I will speak a bit slower as well.
Yeah. There is a background. I don't know.
Okay. So, anyways, so last year I managed to do that. And the second thing that I am scared of is numbers. Now, there's this whole stereotype that Indians are very good with numbers, but that's just not me. I'm a researcher, but I kind of focus more on qualitative. Whenever it comes to numbers, I always bump it off to somebody else. I am very good at analysis, but numbers kills me. So when I needed to do my startup, I would have investor rounds, and I realized I'm at a severe disadvantage. So I signed up for an entire course with an incubation with a management institute just to study finance. And,
Oh, okay.
Wow.
That's
and
fantastic.
Yeah.
3 months, I'm every week I would go in and ask them, when are you doing the finance session? Because they invariably do sessions on how to talk and how to meet investors, how to network. And I'm like, no, I want finance. And on the day that they give finance, I realized there isn't enough space. I literally stood on top of the table to listen in. And
Okay.
I'm definitely the oldest person, but then I was definitely the weirdest person also. And did fairly well in the test that day. And
Oh,
I think those two things have conquered the Himalaya and the large numbers.
Absolutely. Wow.
Wonderful.
but Nuthan, I know that you left a successful career as a regional manager for the Asia Pacific area. You used to work with big brands like Oreos and Kraft, and so I mean, you left everything to dedicate yourself to yoga. And so, how has uh, how has well-being become a particular area of interest for you? How did it happen?
Okay, so even before brand consulting, I used to work in social development. Even there, my focus was research, was on strategy. Even when I joined brand consulting, it was research, strategy, how to enter into a new market, how to manage a crisis, consumer behavior, loads and loads of behavioral inputs. So when I started falling in, I started wondering, is there an aspect of behavior in this as well? I mean, is my stress my behavior? Is my knee problem my behavior? And I realized, yes, it was. So I started going into yoga. I mean, well, yoga actually came in at a time when I realized the therapy, the medicines were not doing so good. And that's many cases it was actually making it worse. For instance, I never knew this, but if some of the antidepressants have a side effect that you can get suicidal.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Yeah,
supposed to,
that is
but
true.
Well,
things
that,
were for me getting a lot worse. So decided that I need to kind of figure out a way myself, and that's how it started. And I realized because I've gone through these problems when others who've going through similar problems, I'm able to help them out. Sometimes I tell them to meditate because I realize they are able to do that, but sometimes not. Sometimes I'm advising them to take vitamin D or
we lost you. We lost you, Nuthan. We
that's
lost. Uh,
really okay.
all right. Yeah. So,
Yeah. All
please.
right. So, like I was saying that, depending on the person, I would customize what needs to be done. For some, it's breath work, some, it's meditation, some, it's going for a jog, for some, it's actually finding purpose. And in many cases, it might be a vitamin D deficiency. So, depending on the person, depending on the community, I try to tailor. And I realized there is a calling in that because I really, really enjoyed my work in brand consulting, but I don't miss it. But if I were to
Right.
stop doing what I do right now, I will miss it. So, yeah, so this is where my
So, is it
calling.
true that in the middle of our journey, we can hear a call, a new call,
Yes.
Mm.
invitation
Absolutely.
to
Absolutely.
our life? And Maria, you too, you reinvented yourself and transformed your life in almost every every aspect. So when you turn 50, and what prompted you to do such a radical transformation?
Well, at age 50, the universe conspired to force me to make these changes. I got divorced, I got sober, I was living alone for the first time, I was an empty nester, and I necessarily had to change everything about my life. And at that time, what seemed like an insurmountable challenge, rudderless time in my life, turned out to be a turning point. And it enabled me to turn many of my challenges and suffering, like Nuthan said, into a force for good. I too had suffered from depression and was able to relate to so many women. Sexual assault is part of my story. The 1 in 4 women, at least in our country, will have been sexually assaulted in their lifetimes. I now am able to uh, mentor and guide other women who have gone through any of those things that I just mentioned, and am turning my pain into a force for good, and it has become a passion of mine. And while I make my living as an attorney, as you mentioned, my passion and what I would like to do full time, and maybe I'll find a way, as Nuthan has, to make my work be my passion, is to help other women. So I realized that I had been wearing many masks in my previous chapter and hiding my authenticity and who I really wanted to be. And so in trying 50 new things that aren't just one-time things, spiritual changes, um, learning, teaching, social activities, thrill-seeking ventures, different things that helped me grow. And perhaps the most fundamental change was incorporating meditation into my life and learning how to be more present in my daily life, that I had become more a human doing than a human being. And now I am much more intentional about how I spend my time. And that has been a sea change for this kind of former perfectionist, former people pleaser who was always trying to do things based on what other people thought of me rather than who I was and who I wanted to be for
You
myself.
told me, you said before that you should be a people pleaser.
Uh,
So, what's happened? How did you learn to say no? Tell us your secrets, please.
yes, I would like
And
to get to a place where I could just say no as a complete sentence, but what I'm able to say now is no, I have a commitment. And that commitment, more often than not, is a commitment to myself. It is a commitment to self-care. It is a commitment to whether or not the obligation will unnecessarily deplete me, or will it bring me towards my goal of who I want to be and how I want to spend my time. Because time is the one thing that none of us can manufacture. It's of uncertain duration. We never know how much we will have. And so I'm trying to live each day in a very intentional manner, in things that will fulfill me, that will help me to grow in some way. I mean, granted, we all have obligations that we must do, but in the discretionary time, that has changed for me, that I never just say yes automatically as I used to do. I try very hard to ask myself the questions of, am I doing this for the right reasons? What is my motivation? And to break that habit of people pleasing is something that comes with age, because no one can make you feel a certain way, as Eleanor Roosevelt says, without your consent. And I'm no longer giving away my power willy-nilly without questioning it for myself. And that is a great benefit of growing older and being more comfortable with who we are in this stage of our lives.
oh, thank you, Maria, for sharing your journey with us. It's very interesting and very helpful, I have to say. And plus, you share with us that you made that understand that you had quite a tough path, quite difficult path. But looking at you, you're so. I mean, your lovely smile, your relaxed, approach. You know, that doesn't make me think that don't make me think that you had such a difficult moment. You had such a tough time. So
I
you
have to
show.
say, it's progress, not perfection. It's progress. And this is a continuous even um, thing that I need to work on for the rest of my life, that we can't simply rest on our laurels and say, okay, I overcame all those things. I need to keep growing and keep sharing and paying it forward to continue maintaining this spiritual condition. So,
We are all a work in progress.
yes,
Yes.
But
absolutely.
Amy, you are another midlife bloomer. I
Oh
say,
yeah.
float
Yeah.
your successful podcast, Fearless Facing 50, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Fearlessly Facing 50s, the podcast. Yeah.
Only, well, last year. Yeah.
I did.
So,
I launched it. Yeah, I launched it in October. And
and 6 months before you turn 50.
right,
Yeah. Like,
exactly.
bring your time.
Yeah.
So, what made you start your podcast?
I think, it's so fantastic to share space with women that are motivating and just encouraging. And they've all been there. It's so funny how we share these commonalities as women, and we really do. And that whole thing about being perfectionist or wanting to please everybody, that was a big part of my journey too. And I think as women we struggle with that more so than men struggle with it in a different way possibly, but as women. And for me it was just, I really wanted to share more, and I wanted to be vulnerable, and I wanted to share my stories, and I knew that a lot of them would resonate with women, and they could say, wow, if Amy does that, maybe I can do that. And so I'll show you a cover of my book if you can see it. It's
Yeah, and over the title
yeah,
cannonball. Oh my
it's
God! Believe me, Amy. Every time I try to do something new, I
yeah,
think of cannonballing with
yes.
Amy. It's so inspiring.
Yeah, I called it Cannonball. And really, to go back to the podcast, I wanted to open the dialogue. I really am challenging the narrative around that drop down on Google when we Google crisis. I mean, midlife, it doesn't come down crisis. I want it to change to opportunity, because that's what this time of life should be, opportunities for all of us. And so Cannonball is I talked about it on my podcast. I said, you know what, I'm going to do this, and I've built this great following of trust with women, which I think is so important. And building that community and opening those dialogues and conversation is how we thrive as women. It really feeds us. And so the book Cannonball, now it's really become a hashtag, Cannonball with Confidence, or hashtag Cannonball Moments. And I want women to sit back and say, I call it their highlight reel, to sit back and close their eyes and reflect on those accomplishments that they've done as women. I mean, the little things, the big things, everything in between, and create their highlight reel, so that propels them forward, looking at their experiences that they've gotten over life. And that's really why I did the podcast too, is because I knew that I was a journalist, I was a broadcast journalist. I knew I was good at sharing information and researching and finding guests, but I wanted to really open the dialogue and have women be brave and fearless and share their stories. And that's what's been amazing, because when women share their stories, just greatness happens. It really does. And you just sit back, and I'll tell you, after every podcast episode or after every review or book club I'm leading right now, because everything's virtual, I sit back and my heart is filled with gratitude, because I'm so thankful that they shared their message, they shared their story. And that's really a challenge for women at any age, but especially at midlife. And one thing I talk about, and yeah, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
How can we improve our social skills? Because you are a master of conversation. You know
Right.
how to let engage people. You know how to boost our
Yeah.
confidence. But how can we improve our social skills? I know it's such a huge topic, because
It
maybe
is.
you.
And let's just talk about it from a standpoint of friendships and your networks and the people that you have in your life. There's several groups I've talked to, recently, that have said, Amy, I don't work anymore. I don't have a network. Well, everybody has a network. And, when you look at your professional network or your personal network, or the people that really, really know you, and, you start challenging yourself socially to your good friends and say, you know what, why do I add value to you? Sit in a room with them. Simon Sinek says this many, many times, challenge your why. And I'm a big follower of Simon. But one thing I'd like to do is go to my friends, my group of supporters, and at times recalibrate with them and say, you know what, why are you choosing me as a friend? How am I adding value to you? And it's really, it's uncomfortable at times, because your friends kind of sit back and say, why are you asking me that? Of course I mean, that's why I'm your friend. But really dig deep and find out, how are you adding value? And you find through that, you reflect and you find these gifts that you have. And that helps you in so many ways. And socially, I think women, whether you have one friend that's an anchor, or you have a posse, it doesn't matter. You have to have people that are depositing into your portfolio right now, not withdrawing. We have to realize that women at this age that, friendships are going to change. They're going to evolve. Some may evaporate. Some may begin and bloom new that you never knew were going to happen. And be open to that and give yourself permission to say, you know what? I add value, and how can I add value to that person and, make that relationship work. So I think that's what we need to do, and it's sometimes stepping out of our comfort zone, going in, and how many times do you sign up for a yoga class? Nuthan, you might like this. You sign up for a yoga class and you pull into the parking lot, and you immediately think, oh, maybe I should just leave and go get a coffee because I'm so nervous to go in to meet these new women. What are they going to be wearing? Are they going to be judging me? We think about that. So we just have to stop that, go forward with confidence, cannonball with confidence, and go into those new situations. And you never know what will become of it.
Love controlling with head. I love
Thank you.
But I do believe that before taking any further step, we need to have a breath.
Yes.
We take a breath, right, Nuthan?
Yes.
And Nuthan, during your workshop, you speak a lot about the healing power of good breathing. Sorry, my Italian a bit funny. And how can we work on it to alleviate anxiety and sleep better too?
So, I mean, one of the things I was noticing as both Amy and you were speaking was, the amount of energy that you exude. And as I observe you, when I start, responding to it and start feeling that energy. So while it is just looking at your, video, what's happening is that there is a shift that's happening inside me. And it's a very, very real biochemical reaction that's happening. And likewise, when I start listening to you very intently, my breath starts to become shorter, right? And if I were to actually listen to a beautiful song, my breath becomes a bit slower, softer, calmer, longer. So as and when we have stimulus coming in, there is a shift happening in us, in our breath level, in our biochemistry level, and that is very real to me, right? So when I want to help someone achieve relaxation, I think the quickest, the easiest way is to help them with their breath. Because whenever there is stress going on, they're breathing from their upper chest, they're not going into...
Nuthan, I'm sorry if I interrupt you, but I do believe there is a mosquito from Kerala that keeps buzzing around you because we can hear this buzzing. So no, I'm joking. I mean, please check your devices around you because we can't hear you properly. I guess.
Yes, sound outside somewhere, possibly. Is that it? Because normally my headphones work.
I'm joking. No, what I'm trying to say that when you talk, we hear a buzzing in the background, a strange noise in the background. So I don't know what is it. So try to speak louder, okay?
Okay.
Also, you're having this conversation from Kerala, so you should shout, otherwise we can't hear you. Okay?
Yes, I'll try and do that. Worst come, I will kind of shift to my mobile, so hopefully I don't have to do that, but let's try this again. All right, so like I was mentioning, there's a whole shift that happens because of your breathing. When you're stressed out, your breath is one type. When you're relaxed, your breath is another. And I always say, look at a child breathing. When the child is resting, as they inhale, the abdomen rises, the chest rises. And when the child breathes out, it's almost like there's a slight smile, the body relaxes. So that's what I normally start with. Okay, how you can access your diaphragm, your abdomen to breathe with instead of just your shoulders. Because if you've been going through a lot of stress, like especially like I have or others have experienced, the breath is only here and you can't breathe out long. So what I do is I train them to breathe slow and deep, and then along with it to use different parts of the chest. And to that, if you kind of start adding a bit of visualization, a bit of psychosensory inputs like relaxing your jaws, relaxing your eyes, let them sink in, relaxing, and feel that smile come from your brain. Okay, or maybe now, because we have social distancing, we don't have enough touch going on, to just sense how it is to just touch your own body. What does that feel like? What does that warmth feel like? So once they get you know used to doing that, automatically there is a shift in well-being. And it can be as simple as that, but then
Yeah.
depends on what women have gone through. For instance, I too work with sexually abused women, women who've gone through a lot of trauma, PTSD. Then it might be a different practice. So it depends. But then this is something very basic, very simple, which could be done and you might feel good. If you don't like sitting, walk around, feel free to walk around, move, but then, calm down, slow down, self soothe. And that can actually help. And yes, that's what I kind of keep loving to work on.
I will try. I will try. I promise I will try. Yeah. But you suggest also to keep a journal, in order to gain clarity, right?
Mhm.
So, what should we be writing in our journal?
Okay, so typically your mind is bombarded with so many different thoughts, and if you're going through a bad, difficult situation, then you constantly keep going back to that. In a day, it's said that in your relationships, if you have five good moments and just one bad moment, there's a good chance that you will remember only the bad thing. Likewise, in a day, by the end of it, if I ask people, what do you remember? Most often, we are wired to think of what is not good, okay, where we made mistakes or how we could have improved rather than all the beautiful things that happened. So, journaling in the simplest of way could maybe help you focus on what is happening, what is good, what you're grateful for, what you're thankful for. Or
Mhm.
maybe it could be about where do you want to head, or what do you want, what kind of are the things that you want to be away from, what are the
Yeah.
what are things that are draining you. So what needs, where you need to create space. So journaling can have a lot of what it impacts depending on what you focus it on and how you work with it. Because if you just try to think about it, you will constantly keep getting bombarded with information. For instance, there is
Yeah.
noise outside and I'm kind of getting distracted with that. But if I'm journaling, if I'm writing, it is much better. And what is even better is if you draw it. So once you
Ah,
get used to writing it, draw it, and that uses a lot more of your brain to actually get you there. So these are kind of techniques that can, help you either to create more happiness or to take you away from whatever is the uncomfortable things that you're going through.
Mm.
Agreed.
so, I guess that all of us, in the middle of our journey, was in need of a bit of clarity. Oh my God,
Sure.
where I'm going. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Maria, in your book, 50 After 50, I mean, you write that time, as you said before, is the most valuable resource we have in our hands. So, what significant changes have you done in scheduling your day, the days that allow you to concentrate on living fully?
Well,
Any
like
tips for us?
yes, like Nuthan said, I start each day writing several things for which I am grateful each day, which sets a to feed my mind with positivity so that I can start on a good note. I practice affirmations. I exercise every morning with a friend so that on Zoom during the time of quarantine, so that I have an accountability partner. So I exercise my spirituality, my mind, my body to start
Oh,
my
that's
day,
nice.
and a little bit of meditation as well. I'm working my way up in meditation. But my point is that I am no longer shoulding all over myself. I
Mm.
want
Mhm.
to start my day on a positive note. So I intentionally structure my day with positive actions to lift myself up, to fill my mind with positivity before I start my legal work. And I have a busy litigation practice. So if I don't have time to sit and meditate, I can meditate in many different ways. Walking meditation, simply from my car to my office, to take deep cleansing breaths, to recenter my mind, and to come from a place of serenity and centeredness rather than anxiety about, oh, I've got to get this done, this done, this done. So setting the stage, and gratitude is a huge part of setting the stage for me, because if I'm grateful for what I have, then it will always be enough. But if I'm always looking for more, it will never be enough. So I have reset my mindset in a way to fill it with positivity and with overarching goals of making the world better because I was here, of exuding positivity and love and strength rather than fear, uncertainty. And I see the quarantine COVID-19 period as a time of a great reset for all of us. I wrote that book 50 After 50 5 years ago, and now I have another chance to reset and work on 60 After 60. But I think our world at large has an opportunity here to distill what's really important in our lives and how we want to feed our minds and our lives now. Like Amy said, who are the people in our lives who help us to be our best versions? Who do we want to surround ourselves with at this part in our lives? And how we are now maybe more acutely than ever facing mortality as a society, because there's so much uncertainty and death around us, that it's time for us to really distill what it is that's most important and how we all want to live this part of our lives, and what regrets, the top regrets of those on their deathbed have been that they wish they had lived a life truer to themselves, that they wish they had spent more time with family and friends who really mattered to them. And I'll likely have other kinds of regrets, but they're not going to be those two, because I'm taking the time now to determine what's most important to me.
Thank you. Yeah,
And
thank
all the
you.
people you have on your show, and you are doing the same thing. So thank you for gathering us together.
So unfortunately, our time is running out. But before we leave, please, Maria, tell us more about your wonderful book. Just a quick note, please.
Thank you. It's called 50 After 50, Reframing the Next Chapter of Your Life. It's on Audible, Kindle, Amazon, or look at my website, marialeonardolsen.com, for events that are upcoming. I'm also a motivational speaker like our other guests. And some of my speaking, or all of my speaking engagements are on there. If you want to be in touch, social media is at 50 After 50. And we share various things, FIFTY, after, and the number 50. We share the things that help us grow. I would love to hear from other women, and I'm really thankful that you found me and I found these women, because I think this is such an important part of our evolution, is lifting each other up. So thank you.
And Amy, tell me more. Tell us more about your wonderful Cannonball. I love that. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. I know. I love Cannonball too, and I had
the title.
I had a few people. So it's called Cannonball: Fearlessly Facing Midlife and Beyond, and that is me jumping off a cliff. And as you'll see in the book, thank you. I'm very scared of heights, but I did it. You know, I'm excited that it was out on Amazon. It was actually trending as #1 within 3 hours of launch in several different categories. So it's been really exciting. It's a little different for me because it's my first book and everything is virtual. So I had planned a book tour and several speaking engagements around the country. And so we're recalibrating, which is all part of, as we all talked about, you know, that's what you have to do, recalibrate and go forward. So I encourage you to check out the book. You can order on Amazon. It's in bookstores as well, but Amazon's a great place to get it. And what I love about it is getting feedback from my community. That's one reason I really do this, is between my podcast called Fearlessly Facing 50, and 50 spelled out. You can find it anywhere if you Google it. Apple, Spotify, anywhere. I like to engage with my community, just as you do, Maria. It's so empowering to hear from people and get their feedback and say, wow, I just got feedback from a 55-year-old woman a few weeks ago that said, Amy, I listened to one of your podcasts and it was challenging me to think differently about things. And she's now has grown children, actually a grandmother, and she's going back to get her degree. So, I mean, it's like a goosebump moment for me because it's, something that was shared encouraged her to do something different, to take action. And that's what it's all about. So I'm all over social media. On Instagram, I'm fearlessly.facing.50. I have a Facebook group that's called Cannonball, Making Your Splash with Confidence. I also have a Facebook page called Fearlessly Facing 50. My website is, of course, I'm sure you can all guess, fearlesslyfacing50.com. 50 is spelled out. So you know what? I love people to connect with me at any level and give me feedback about what they want to hear from on the podcast, what they want me to write about. I already have started my next book, so that's exciting, and a workbook is to come. So it's just been really great. The book itself, what I love about it most is, I share my stories. I've lived all over the world. I've, raised 3 kids. I've lost my parents. All of those are part of my journey. But most important for me is at the end of every chapter is there's a part where women can reflect and look at some strategies that they can apply to their life wherever they are, whatever their story is, whatever their circumstances is. It's not 5 things you have to do to get here. It's just a time to self-reflect and say, wow, I think I could think about this differently. So that's one of my favorite parts of the book, are the reflections at the end. So thank you so much for having me and just introducing me to these amazing women. And what you're doing with CrunchyTales is blowing me away. The visual aspect of it every day looks incredible. Every day, the images that you share just light up anybody that looks at them. And your content is so valuable for women. And I take time, and then I go back and reread articles because that's what it's about. You've created such a great community. I feel very grateful to be a part of it.
Because, we can call it a midlife revolution, a midlife awakening.
Yes.
We are not over the hill. That's what we wanted to show to the world. We are not over the hill. And Nuthan, you are, the CEO of Me Max Me, and also an Ayurvedic perfume expert. Can you tell us more? Because here in the West, probably we don't really, know about Ayurveda, but maybe you can introduce us to the magic word of Ayurveda, especially midlife. I think that probably we can try something new.
Sure. So, one of the things I discovered during my yoga journey is that I have this really special nose where when I sense a scent, I feel what happens in my chakra system. So that's again an Eastern concept of, how energy works. And I started developing it and then started learning more of Ayurveda to understand how we can kind of, see if sense can work from an Ayurvedic perspective in terms of helping with heartbreak. That was the first one I worked on because I really needed to fix that. And then I started working on insomnia, I started working on stress, I started working on winter depression, women's menstrual discomfort and all that. And to be honest, had it not been for COVID, I would be launching it in Europe in April. Now I'm kind of waiting it out for travels to resume so that I can get back to Europe and launch my brand there. But meanwhile, I think the last few months has all been about helping community with a lot of sleep whispers and a lot of audio, which is done fairly well. So if anybody would need any assistance in sleep, I think you can just find me on Instagram at Nuthan Manohar. And I have a couple of my audios on IGTV. You can just plug in and fall asleep. So that's where I think that will be a great way to connect. Perfumes, I think you will have to wait before I can give you a lot more about it, because it's all about experiencing it. So.
But I can tell you that she's working on a special feature for CrunchyTales about Ayurvedic perfume. And also, Nuthan will run on the 21st of July our first Crunchy webinar, how to find purpose at midlife. So I would suggest you not to miss this lovely webinar. It will be live on Facebook. Just follow CrunchyTales on Facebook and register for your interest. So thank you, gorgeous ladies. I'm really, really pleased that you join us. And well, as always, please remember, playful women don't get old. Follow CrunchyTales. Stories for midlife bloomers, and ciao. Talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.